Sometimes we can hit a point in our lives when things start to feel flat. There's a certain numbness that maybe creeps in. And while we're still productive and still achieving things, those victories start to feel more and more hollow. And it has us second guessing, has us wondering if we just need to appreciate what we have or if something is actually wrong and how to find our way through. And that's what I want to cover today. That sense that we are losing some of that vibrancy and what it means and where we might go to find our way back to a little more vitality and a little more color in our lives. I think maybe a good place to start is really helping people understand that space. I've talked to several men who really just didn't feel that deep interest in life, feeling like things were very repetitive, that they were going through their days, but they became more and more numb. They felt less and less. They really didn't feel like there was a whole lot of color or sparkle in their life, and things had a certain real flatness to them. And what's complex about this is if you were to go to your physician, they might ask you some questions. They might try and understand more deeply what's going on for you, where you've lost that interest, where that joy is gone. And what they're trying to figure out is whether you're depressed. And when you're continuing to achieve, when you're continuing to show up for your commitments, when you're still getting out of bed every morning and carrying on with your daily routines, they're not going to diagnose you with depression. And so now you get caught in this in-between zone, and it is challenging and it is disorienting. But more recently, a researcher and psychiatrist named Dr. Judith Josephson has uncovered a term called high-functioning depression. And while I'm not equipped to diagnose or provide any advice on depression, I think the core research and insights she found are very useful for men who are in that space of feeling like something's missing for them. What she really uncovered was that rather than underfunctioning in that space, there's a certain proportion of us that move into a space of overfunctioning, of getting busier, of working harder, of really finding and continuing to focus on our achievements and to focus on what we are getting done, on our productivity. And where we can tell that this is productivity without satisfaction is that we reach those milestones, we reach those achievements, and we feel somewhat indifferent to them. There's not a lot of recognition or feelings of achievement that go along with them. We may have hoped and we may have really pinned some of our happiness on feeling happy or feeling better when, and we arrive there only to come up short. And sometimes we simply just focus on the next goal and the next goal and the next goal. And it is hard to navigate your way through that, to find that space of understanding what's going on and how you want to be able to work with that and find your way back through a pathway into feeling that fullness once again. And the first place to start in that is really just to try and take stock and truly understand where you're at. Understand what's working and maybe what's not working. Separating yourself from what you're achieving and valuing your own experience of what it's like to be doing the work towards achieving. What are the things that are frustrating for you? What are the irritants? Where are you maybe a little bit anxious about some aspect of an outcome that you can't control? Where is there maybe even a little bit of sadness, even a little bit of grief? Maybe something has ended work-wise with projects. Maybe it's not getting to work with the same people. Just tuning into yourself a little bit and trying to understand and recognize where you're at. And admittedly, for males, this is a more challenging prospect. We're not particularly well socialized or taught by our culture and emotion around language, being able to tune into ourselves and learn what's going on for ourselves. And this can add an extra layer of that complexity, trying to talk about what's wrong, what's going on for us, where we're at, without having a good vocabulary for it, without feeling like we're able to really articulate what's going on for us. I know for me, at different times in my life, in heavy emotional conversations or when asked to share my feelings, I would be somewhat mute. I could feel that stir of emotions and thoughts in my body, but I couldn't give voice to them. I didn't have the language. I didn't have the understanding. And as I've learned along the way, I didn't have that mind-body connection that I needed. Emotions often do sit in our bodies, and learning to understand them and work with them is an important part of that process. But I would say, as a beginning phase, simply be quiet enough to see what that inner voice does have, what comes up for you. And this may be challenging for some individuals. There are some individuals that want to overbook their calendars, that want to use that overfunctioning to keep their mind busy, to avoid dealing with feelings, to push away maybe trauma from the past, to not have to feel moments of doubt or insecurity or worry about their self-worth. And sometimes the thing that we are most afraid of is just being with our thoughts, is listening to that inner voice. There's also often a fear that starting to tune into our emotions, we will be overwhelmed by them. We will be swallowed up with them. We will have a breakdown and hit a point of no return. And I would say, in fact, the opposite is more true. The more that we're able to even start to articulate pieces of what we're feeling in our body, or even some of the more familiar emotions, which is often for men anger, if we're able to define even a little bit of anger, that starts to diffuse that energy. And actually, the more you're able to tune into your emotions, evidence has shown the less severe they're going to be and the more quickly you're going to move through them, in fact. So just starting to see what you can notice within yourself, to create some space to be present with yourself, and validating them as important emotions, understanding that they are messengers for you, understanding that that they do represent pieces of your life. They do represent your wants and your needs, and where boundaries are crossed and where something is at risk of being lost that you don't want to lose. And starting to tune in with that may be with a trusted other person, or that may be just in your journal. And doing this with the purpose of understanding. This is not meant to vent or dump toxic emotions, so to speak. Evidence has also suggested that where we once viewed venting our anger as a very healthy thing, now it can actually be somewhat creating those pathways in your mind that in fact encourage more anger. So it's being able to express ourselves maybe more than it is being able to vent. And then it's also, as always, starting to search for some of the balance in your life, starting to check that overfunctioning, starting to step away where you can and do things that are meaningful for you. Spending the time just doing a little bit of word working, going for a walk, creating a piece of art, doing something that isn't productive necessarily, that doesn't need an outcome to it, but something that allows you to reconnect with yourself, allows you to find a little bit of spaciousness. And these things are all connected. What we really want to create is enough of getting out of that endless cognition and analytics and finding those other pieces of yourself. Those other pieces of yourself have been somewhat pushed aside, and we need to bring them back into the fold. They need a place at the table. And so as much as we may bristle against the idea of our emotions and sharing our feelings, or tuning into ourselves and understanding the signals in our bodies, these are all really important pieces of intelligence. I consider all truly high-functioning individuals to have both intellectual capacity and intelligence, to have emotional intelligence, and to have somatic intelligence, and how the three of those pieces work together, the logic, the emotion, and the somatic, is what's going to allow you to be most aligned, to have the energy, and to have the vitality that you're searching for, and to be on a path that's true to you. So as we start to create space, as we start to tune into ourselves, as we start to give ourselves space to recharge as well, is also some pieces around understanding the right milestones for ourselves, understanding the right goals for ourselves, understanding goals that are meaningful to us, that are investing our energy in things that we feel passionate about, and also stopping to celebrate. And when we stop and celebrate, I think it's important not to focus on the external output or the achievement, but the effort that we put into it, on the passion that we were willing to bring to it, on the perseverance we were willing to bring to it, on our sheer will maybe at times, but also recognizing that we created a result that meant something to us. We invested in somebody's change, and we're able to now see the positive change that's happened. We've invested in some particular population getting a benefit out of the work that we're doing, and we can, even though we may not see that benefit firsthand, we know that it's there and it is meaningful to us. It makes us believe that our efforts have had a wider impact than simply better Q4 profits or simply driving the organization's strategic plan forward. It has to have a meaning. It has to have some purpose to it. And so if you're feeling that numbness, if you're feeling that disconnect, know that you're not just making it up. Know that there is nothing inherently wrong with you. Again, up to your physician to potentially diagnose you with depression, and there could be good reasons for that and good treatments for that. But often in this high functioning but disconnected space, the way back and through it is to integrate those pieces of ourselves, to bring that emotional space online, to bring that somatic space online. And these don't have to be big dramatic shifts that happen. These can be simply noticing there's tightness in your chest before you walk into that meeting because you realize you're armoring up a little bit, that you may be challenged in the meeting, that it could turn into a little bit of a debate on a particular subject, that your idea might get challenged. That's a piece of information that helps us tune into it. It's understanding that you can't sleep because you were ruminating over some particular outcome that you have no control over, and that drives emotion within you. It's understanding that caring and investing will have risks to it, and that our ability to control outcomes isn't always what we want it to be. We live in an uncertain and sometimes random world. But as long as we value our experience, as long as we tune into our experience, and as long as we're not using overfunctioning to try and avoid those other parts of ourselves, the more we're going to probably have that sustained energy, and the more that our days are going to bring back that joy, bring back the interest and the curiosity and the color and the peaks and valleys rather than the flatness. If you want to learn more, by all means, check out my website or the links in the show description below. I hope this was helpful, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.